What are some of the scariest small towns in America? Colorado City, Arizona. If you are not known there, you will be followed by several white SUVs. First place that came to my mind. You get a weird vibe driving through and seeing all these half-built compounds and people just stare at you as you drive by. The area around Manly, Louisiana. The town was nice, great Mexican food. But once you're out of town, it's 30 minutes on bad roads to the highway. I was sent out there for a job. Nothing is paved, county roads are gravel or dead end into gullies, wild dogs roaming, and random houses are just abandoned in the woods. Locals from town won't go into some of the areas like Cushetta. Nothing matches the map, and there was no cell service. I passed an abandoned hospital? Or something. It was a sign and then foundations in the woods. The creepiest part was I was talking to some locals and a guy tells me out of nowhere, "Oh yeah, I saw you by the lake, figured you weren't from here." I hadn't seen him there at all. It was a one-lane dirt road. He kept talking and it turned he knew where I'd been all day. He and his friends had kept tabs on me. And his smile scared the hell out of me. I've never left a town so fast. I feel like this comment doesn't fully explain the weirdness and creepiness of the abandoned houses, wild dogs and locals keeping tabs on me all day. Damn, now I understand how writers come up with movies like House of Wax. Rulo, Nebraska. The town has a real haunted vibe to it. Lots of abandoned buildings with no one around. Plus it was home to a Christian identity cult led by Michael Ryan in the early 1980s that tortured and murdered several members. Ryan was sentenced to death for the murders but ended up dying in prison before the sentence was carried out. Rod Colvin wrote a book about this cult called Evil Harvest. My GPS rerouted me through Gary, Indiana last week. There was a literal car fire in a neighborhood it routed me through. Seemed to have been burning for a while. No one around. Thumbs up. Yeah dude, I drive through Gary when I make the road trip home. Every time, I gas up in eastern Indiana and I don't fucking stop until I hit Wisconsin. I understand that Gary, Indiana, is perhaps not as bad as the online reputation may have you believe. But I've been wrong before. Orange Cove, California. A few years back, my wife and I were traveling up to the Sequoias, and we took a new shortcut route as we had a new baby and were looking for a park to stop off at so she could nurse him and we could give him a change. Google showed us this park at the end of a cul-de-sac. We drive in and we're chatting and not really paying attention, because we've gone to the Sequoias for years and it just seemed like business as usual. But little things on the street are starting to register with me almost subconsciously. There are like 10 or 20 dogs just roaming free on the street, every house is barred and chain linked, and a few people are starting to come out of their houses to watch as we drive. We get to the park, and it's completely broken down and overgrown, but we're still talking and we get out to go sit on a bench so she can feed the kid. As we get out, I notice there's a large dumpster sitting wide ways in the street next to the park that looks out of place and purposeful. Then as we sit and start to lay out the changing pad to change his diaper, I look at the graffiti on the picnic benches. There's the normal inscrutable writings and various forms of penises, but then I notice these incredibly brutal depictions of like dismembered cops. It just felt like they were warnings, and not just drawings. Right then this truck pulls up, past the dumpster that was in the road, and then backs up until it's almost touching the dumpster, and I immediately realize why the dumpster is positioned like that. So that no one can see the truck from the main street. The men just stay in the truck, looking at us. My wife is still talking, and I say, "Let's go. We need to get back to the car." Normally she'd question me or say some banter about me telling her what to do, but something about my tone and she immediately got up and said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Let's just get in the car. No car seat. Keep him in your lap." I open the door and get both of them in, move as quickly as I can to the driver's side, get in, and make a quick U-turn back down the road. As we're driving out, the truck starts following us, and almost every house now has people standing at the front of their chain link fences, watching us. We get back to the main road, turn off, and the truck stops following us. We pull over a few blocks down and take stock of the almost ghost town this main road goes down. We put our kid back in his car seat, do a quick Google search for Orange Cove and find that at the time it had one of the densest gang populations in California, and vow never to go back there again. I just checked it out on Wiki, the population is under 10,000. In such a small city, what the hell do so many gang members do? Surely there aren't enough places for them to rob, or people to sell drugs to for so many gangs to be making a profit? Cairo, Illinois. Protected by levees. Mostly abandoned. What is it, would you say, you actually do here? We stopped for gas here once, technically just north of it in Mounds, and the place was so weird. The gas pumps were absolutely vintage, we weren't sure where to pay, all buildings on the property were closed, and didn't look inviting either. The place doubled as a salvage yard, so there were tons of junked out cars, and the only sign of life was an angry dog on a chain. Not even knowing where to pay, I guess it was closed. We ended up just moving on without getting gas. Not great vibes. Don't think this particularly counts because it wasn't actually a town or even in a town, but I got lost not too far outside Hot Springs, Arkansas, and stumbled across a weird church that had a razor wire fence and was almost nothing but concrete bunker-styled buildings. Also, if you aren't white, avoid Errol, Missouri. Hawthorne, Nevada was a very strange place. It has a naval base in the middle of the desert and a lake called Walker Lake that's rumored to have a tunnel for subs to go to the Pacific. When I drove through and stopped for gas there, everyone wouldn't stop staring, and it just gave me a vibe. Edit autocorrect always messing up. OMG. I got lost and stumbled into a town like this. I don't remember the town name. It was in northern Arkansas, and me and my sister had to stop to use the bathroom, and we were going to ask for directions. Small, dinky gas station. About 3 trucks in the parking lot. Me and my sister walk in and the walls were lined with tables with at least 15 people sitting at them. Conversation died. The place went dead silent and everyone just turned and stared. We noped out of that, got back in the car and just kept driving back the way we came. Once passed through a similar gas station in Mississippi on a road trip. The bathroom was an outhouse out back and people would just not stop staring. I held it that time too. Newtown, Mo. Part of St. Charles, I'm pretty sure. Place is eerie. The trees line up too perfectly. No noise. No dogs barking. No kids playing. Nobody just waking around. The houses are all less than 10 years old but nearly identical and made to look like 1910s to 20s bungalows. Landscaping is pristine. Then, downtown, there are frickin' massive animal statues and the buildings all look like the Parthenon. It feels like those videos demonstrating the effects of a nuke, if a place could feel like that. Wasn't Newtown supposed to be some kind of planned community with everything right there, shops, jobs, schools, etc., so you didn't need to drive and didn't need to leave? IDK if it actually worked out that way, but it was an intriguing idea at the time. Samoa, California. I've been in some weird places. Nowhere has ever creeped me out like that little village of the damned. Imagine Stephen King and David Lynch fell asleep playing Silent Hill, and shared a fever dream directed by John Carpenter. Anyone who's been there feel free to back me up. There's a straight-up evil energy there. I was looking for a Humboldt County town on this list. Honestly though, Samoa isn't our scariest little town even. I mean, we have a place known as Murder Mountain. Xenia. Oh. Mom and Dad robbed a pharmacy there in the 70s. Bardstown. KY it's just. Odd. There's a little town in Florida called Dunallen. It's where Jeepers Creepers was filmed. It's also home to Rainbow Springs, which is beautiful. How about a creepy small town in Canada? I grew up about 20 minutes down the road from Aylmer, Ontario. The town is run by a legit cult. Fundamentalist Christianity. Bunch of people following an old man, very conservative town. They've been doing fairly big anti-mask protests, and causing a lot of BS lately. Lots of allegations of sex abuse, and everything else that comes along with your typical cult. Growing up in another weird town, Aylmer was just different. I think there are many little towns in the deep south that are straight out of a horror movie. Have driven through them a few times. I don't have names, but couldn't wait to leave them. Taos, New Mexico. Nothing creepy about it at first glance, but the entire town is permeated with an odd buzzing noise not unlike a refrigerator. Even weirder, scientists have no idea where it comes from. Honestly just stayed there a few weeks ago. Did not notice this, but I will say they have a lot of touristy crap stores that made for a fun day lol. Centralia, PA. I've been through there, it's effing desolate and there's smoke coming out of the streets. Is this the town that's on fire underground? Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Decaying oil boom town stolen from the Osage. I'm pretty sure it's where some of the Osage Indian murders took place. It's a weird little place with lots of history and a strange population of uber-rich Palm Beach-ers that vacation there. The downtown is frozen in time Art Deco architecture while the rest of the town looks like a bomb was dropped in the neighborhoods. Seriously, the neighborhood houses look like they exploded. There's something just off there. It's like the air is electric and the atmosphere is open at the same time. It's like the feeling before an electrical storm no matter the weather. Asterisk buzzing. Asterisk. Maybe the veil is just thin there? Maybe it's all the pain. The rise and fall of oil, extreme generational violence against the Osage, the poverty, the income divide, and the struggle of the cowboy. I'm high and tired so I'll end there. I have some mild ghost stories from there if anyone wants them. Yes, please. Stull, KS. Gateway to hell. I thought hell was in Michigan. Cairo, Illinois. Drove through a few times with my boyfriend when he was a truck driver. Had a very spooky and dark feeling to it. Only place open was a Subway, and all the lights in the parking lot were out. I looked the town up and apparently a flood had come through and destroyed most of the town years before. What was left was probably the most unwelcome, eerie place I've had the dissatisfaction of visiting. Everything I know about Cairo, I learned from American Gods. Gary, Indiana. I was flying to Chicago and the rest of my family was driving there from the East Coast. I always turn on my phone after a flight to a few texts from my parents asking about airport logistics, but this time I picked up my phone and the only text I saw was, "We're stopping for gas in a town called Gary, looks a little run down," and no other texts besides that. No one in my family would pick up for a phone call and they were usually early to the airport. My imagination went running due to the reputation that Reddit has given me about Gary. Luckily everything was fine, but I sure had a bit of a scare. Warren, Massachusetts. Just an eerie town with a weird past. People from there tend to be odd. Point Pleasant, right? The most famous creepy small town. The Mothman? As a West Virginian, I can assure you that Point Pleasant is more boring and sad than creepy. Trust me, I'm pretty down on Paris, Texas. Wikipedia page is, "Yikes on bikes." Boswell, Oklahoma is also not fun. Ha ha ha, I just googled it and it has an Eiffel Tower with a cowboy hat? Vidor, TX. Came to say this. Awful, awful town. My mom has family from there. Went once, never went back. Bunch of fucking racists. Orange, Texas. A small town on the Louisiana border off of I-10. The town had very productive shipyards in WW1 era and it was a booming town at one point. But time, drugs and generational poverty have poisoned the area. It has a suspended out of time feel about it. Season 1 of True Detective was filmed in the area. Towns in Savannah, Georgia, it's claimed to be the most haunted place in the world. I definitely want to grab my ectoplasma gun and ghost trap and call in the guys to check it out sometime. I lived there for a number of years and weird creepy bizarre shit happens there too. And tons of racist shit. It is a beautiful town though. If you've ever heard musings about Oniontown NY and assume it would be worth checking it or it can't possibly be real, I can assure you the answers are, respectively, it isn't and it is. I was a moron teenager who went poking around with my fellow moron teenager friends. You don't want to be there and they emphatically do not want you there either. Cassadaga, Florida. You won't stumble into by accident. It's about 45 minutes northeast of Orlando. A town full of psychics and various other mediums, and the Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp. I assume during whatever its peak season might be it's a fairly busy tourist trap? But I've been there twice and the place was basically a ghost town. Real weird vibe. Lilydale is a spiritualist town, hamlet in New York State near Cassadaga Lake. Wonder if the town in Florida was inspired by the one in NY. Carpenter Way. It's a super tiny town. I've only driven through once, so I can't say it's super scary, definitely creepy though. The one time I was there was nobody outside except this little girl outside the town hall that just stared at us while we drove by, shaking her head the whole time. On the way out of town we did see a kid playing basketball in his backyard, so that mitigated the creepiness of the little girl.
Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.